Hello, welcome to NBL Overtime. An amazing week of NBL action. The Cairns Taipans are throwing haymakers from the bottom of the ladder. And the Illawarra Hawks, well, a crack's starting to appear. There is plenty happening, but none so potentially bigger than what our main man Damon Lowery has partaken in the last 24 hours. Peter Hooley, can you just walk us through the feat that you attempted and conquered over the last 24 hours?
Australia Day weekend, I have a bush run, I call it. And this was the second annual. So I organized a 5K loop around my neighborhood. And I have to run around that every hour on the hour, starting at 12:01 a.m. So that Saturday night double overtime game in Perth didn't really help me a whole lot. But yeah, that's what I do.
You know what the most thing I liked about that? You referred to it as second annual because there's already been more than one. Because one of my biggest pet peeves is when people say it's the annual and it's only happened once. Peter Hooley, did you do anything similar?
I had a couple of beers, watched some NBL, which was really nice. Sit back and relax. I retired. I don't break a sweat. But no, it was very impressive what you did. Followed your stories as well. You're one of a kind, and I wish I had a small ounce of your mental strength, but unfortunately I'm very weak.
I will turn the alarm off at the slightest inconvenience, and you're out here doing that. It is making us all feel terrible. But let's have a look at the Mitsubishi Motors ladder right now, because the end of this NBL season is just becoming ridiculous. The way Cairns are just smacking the teams up the top. And I'll tell you what, Southeast Melbourne and Tassie, we finally have Adelaide in sixth spot. What a lot of people thought would happen, Pete. Is there going to be much change to come, or is the six locked in?
I think the top six is locked in. The order is up for anybody right now. And we've been watching a lot of the different races around. You can look at the percentage. Will that matter? I mean, the percentage between second and third, could that come into play? But right now, I have a feeling, and we're wrong all the time. We're right very few.
Speak for yourself.
I think the most important thing for a lot of the teams, other than Illawarra, who will finish top and deservedly so, is to avoid fifth spot. If this Adelaide juggernaut continues, you don't want to do or die game against them right now, and we'll talk about it. They've been exceptional.
Well, it's dangerous because they're in form as well. 2-0 across the weekend, and ever since the suspension, Montrez, he mentioned on Twitter that he was coming back to play and he was going to play with a vengeance, and he's doing just that. You do not want to face these guys. As you said, just to reiterate that point, Pete, they could be arguably the most dangerous team outside of the Illawarra Hawks.
Look, the six teams that are in the top six, and I agree with you, Pete, it's set. Like, it's going to be, there'll be some movement. But as far as Adelaide goes, when Montrezl Harrell, he's never really had anybody out here that can guard him one-on-one. I thought maybe Xavier Cooks could deal something with him. But Trez is way too much of an NBA savvy scoring veteran. He's got all the tricks of the trade that you can only get from playing over 350-odd NBA games against some of the stiffest competition in the world. So he can pretty much offensively do whatever he wants to do on the court. Now, if he's stepping out shooting threes from time to time, then it's good luck to you. But on the block, ISO from the elbow, 45, short corner, he can do whatever you want. You got to hope he misses.
The last 8 games, Adelaide as a team's allowing 91 points, which is best in the league. Defensively, they've been one of the best teams in the league this last stretch, and we kept calling for it. They have the offensive talent. We'll talk about Kendrick Davis. They've got Vasiljevic. Isaac Humphries has been a massive reason why defensively they look elite. You go back and watch a couple of those recent games. Lat Mayen's come into his own Sunday. Detch is now healthy. So they're ticking the boxes defensively, and they've got offensive weapons galore. Now it's all about harnessing whatever they've figured out in recent weeks of we need to win every game. They're playing with their backs against the wall, to using that to go on this run. The beauty of this whole NBL season, and we've said it for a long time now, is in years gone by, you could kind of say it's probably this team and maybe this team who can win. There's always a couple that are outliers. If you make the top 6, you can make a strong case as to why any one of them could win it and run the table when they get to February.
The Adelaide 36ers, if they can win this year, after
wild.
what has happened throughout the year, you can just throw being a perfect keep-it-together organisation out the window, because absolutely anything can happen. They don't deserve it because of what they've put everyone through this season, but part of me just hopes to God that they manage to pull it off, because that would be absolutely unbelievable. Kendrick Davis, Montrez has been up and down at times, but Kendrick Davis has been so remarkably consistent that another thing that I'm praying for outside of Adelaide to win this thing is that he stays in this league for a long time.
25 years of age, second-year pro. He can do whatever he wants to do on the basketball court. Kendrick has been like this every single game this season. He missed a couple of games through suspension. He came back and immediately picked up where he left off. He's too fast. Look at the numbers, 26 a game he's averaging. Been leading the league in assists for the entire year. So steals, he defends. Look, he is my MVP. He's my MVP. Now, we can sit up here and have a nice little spirited debate about whether it should be Bryce, because when Bryce was going on his historical biblical tear, they were winning and Adelaide were losing. Now, when when he got his full troops back, Kendrick is now keeping his consistent form, and now Adelaide is winning. Bryce's numbers have come down. Perth are losing games. Perth sitting 5th, Adelaide sitting 6th. Kendrick got, 2 points behind Bryce? Double the assists. What's the problem?
I hate to
now
say
look, and don't even say, Perth beat Adelaide that one time. Don't care. Don't care. Far as it's the NBL regular season MVP. And don't give me the neither. Yeah, but he's more important to his team. Bryce is more important. No, because if Kendrick was out, they lose. If Bryce is out, they lose. So that cancels out that argument. For me, it's Kendrick.
The craziest part of this is that Bryce Cotton had this award sewn up and won because his main competition in Kendrick Davis was so far down the ladder. Now, they win that game. He hits that free throw. They're sitting a little bit prettier on the ladder. You're probably still arguing that Bryce is potentially the MVP there. If they're sitting further up the ladder, they can sneak into third, second. He misses that free throw. They tumble down the ladder further. Now you just got to sit with Kendrick Davis.
The gap is closed right up for sure. And these last few games are going to matter. They really are. I think in terms of the MVP race, the votes aren't done. We know it's captains and coaches. The votes aren't done until the last game. So it's a throwdown. It's on a Saturday. The votes start after that. 2 days later, we have the awards ceremony. So that's when the votes are done. The votes aren't done now. The votes aren't done during the historical run that Bryce was going on. So these last few games for both of these MVP candidates are going to weigh into, you think, the recency bias of whoever votes, whatever captains and coaches vote.
Before we get onto the run home and the road to the playoffs for the Adelaide 36ers, a one-word answer, or one-name answer, does Kendrick or Bryce win it at the end of the year?
Kendrick is not like us. You're not like us.
At the end of the...
Come on, Pete.
Bryce.
Bryce, we got one Bryce. I'm going Kendrick as well. But Adelaide's run home, you see there, it's still going to be tough. You know, you still want to go into there rolling with form. But if they can potentially run the table there, they probably only need to win 1 or 2 to lock that spot in. How dangerous can they get?
Well, again, they've got themselves a nice percentage buffer as well. Tassie will talk about them. They've been decimated by key injuries and really struggled to try and find a way to be competitive in those games. But if they continue this run and they can keep harnessing the energy they have, I think it's really important that you look at how well they've played with their backs against the wall. And every interview they've spoke about, we've got to play for our season. And they've been harnessing that in the right way and they're showing up defensively. Now, when it gets to the last couple of games, if they've already got 6 spots sewn up and they take their foot off the gas, can they flick that switch then for a playing game? Probably, but if they continue it the whole way through, and whoever they play, I'm trying to think about, so right now Perth's in 5th. You do the ladder predictor, South East Melbourne can drop to 5th. Sydney can as well. Melbourne's sitting 2nd right now, unlikely, but in any of those matchups, if they're going on the road, they're playing the way they're playing.
Look, everybody in the top 6 can beat everybody. Every team seems to have some kind of a cause to rally around. Now, some are kind of neutral. I don't quite know what Southeast Melbourne Phoenix cause is. Illawarra Hawks got a cause. You know, you guys been, not you guys particularly, but you know, the Australian basketball landscape over the journey has been a little bit disrespectful to the Illawarra Hawks. They got a cause, right? Melbourne United, they're an institution. They compete for championships every single year. Adelaide 36ers have somehow used all the drama, the suspensions. You did us wrong with those suspensions. That should have never happened. You guys are, you're spreading all these false rumors and narratives about us. Hey, fellas, whew, they circle the wagons, and rightly or wrongly, they have a cause. It is us against everybody. That's what they are rallying around. That's what makes them extra dangerous on top of their already clear-cut talent.
Unfortunately, it seems like everyone is us versus them because you say one word about a couple of these teams and they kick their backs up and they get awfully sensitive about it. We've seen that a few times throughout the year. But look, the top 6 is so close and that's where all the focus is. And now the Cairns Taipans have just come in and said, we want to steal a bit of the slice of the overtime action. They win both their games. They are playing fantastic basketball. We've said it time and time again, Damon, and I think you've agreed with me this on the past. You have to fear a team that does not fear death. Now, there's a couple of teams that we've mentioned, their road to the playoffs is pretty easy because we see Cairns maybe once, maybe twice on that list. The way they're playing now, that ain't no easy matchup.
I said earlier, too, I said, if you go to Cairns with any kind of attitude problem, you're leaving with an L. Been saying this all season.
Yeah, a long time ago.
Now, these dudes have somehow managed to put all that, whatever self-perceived pressure to the side because they can't make the playoffs, and they're playing looser basketball. They actually are playing almost better without Taron. I want to say, I don't want to disparage Taron Armstrong because they had some great wins with him. But 40 has found a way for these guys to still be effective without their lead guard. Similar to Petri Coppinen, when all of a sudden he loses some guys, he has to coach almost a totally different team. So Cairns have always had the talent. We're not talking about like a Tassie depleted, Brisbane Bullets depleted. Cairns got 3 imports, Wardenberg, Kyron Galloway. They got plenty of talent. They just, whatever, mentally just couldn't get it right. Right now, they are balling, and they got Brisbane, I think, twice coming up. So they probably should win both of those games, with full credit to 40 and what he's done with that group.
They were depleted, though. Throughout the 15-game losing streak, they were. And you've seen how hard it is Tassie struggling now when you have key injuries. But Sam Wardenberg, you mentioned, this whole year's been fun to watch, but in this Perth game, should have had a triple-double.
Yep.
Fell short of that, but 24, 9 and 9. He's playing with a different level of confidence right now. I love to see it because I know what he's been through on a personal level. One, everyone goes through slumps. He had the sophomore slump last year, second-year pro. His numbers are okay, but he had the inconsistencies. You can see he kind of had the yips shooting the ball, putting the work in the off-season. He's had 2 Summer League opportunities ripped away from him from injuries while he's got there. Like, it's been very unfortunate, the timing of his injuries. He's a key piece, but the reason why, you talk about Taron Armstrong not being there, the 2 wins, this Rob Edwards that we've seen recently, he's been unbelievable, but I guess, the way that he's composed himself, and I go back to that summer shootout game where he had 35 against Brisbane. He could have easily had 60 points if he kept launching shots like we saw him shoot in the start of the season. A lot of erratic shots, but he is staying so composed, playing within himself, trusting his teammates. And it's no surprise when he's doing that. Tanner Groves has been great as well. Bradshaw's had his moments. They've got weapons and they're healthy.
Do you know what one of the issues for this, and I'll play devil's advocate a little bit on this. If I'm a Cairns Taipans fan, I'm watching them play now the way that they're playing, with all the pressure off. Where was this before? There's part of me that's a little bit annoyed saying, this team has a good roster. Let's not go around acting like, you know, this is bottom of the barrel dudes. They've got good players and they're playing hard, they're playing well. Where was this when it mattered?
See, that's the thing. And this is the thing when you talk about meshing basketball personalities. Rob Edwards comes in, he's probably thinking, man, I got to get my numbers. Yeah, what are we doing over here? You know, he doesn't know 40 all that well. And then Taron Armstrong is like, hey, man, I'm trying to make the league. And, you know, it's a little bit choppy. All of a sudden, after so much losing happens, you're always going to find out the true character of your guys. 40 saw it, called them all out in the press conference. Just said, that's it. Now, in hindsight, 40 probably should have did that sooner, because they was already showing those kind of selfish those signs back then, but for whatever reason, whatever. But 40's done it now, and look how they've come out and responded. Rob Edwards has modified his game, like you say, Pete. He's just no longer just launching because he's starting at the point, which is very interesting. I didn't think he would have done that, but now that he's got to set up the offense, he gets them organized, then the ball comes back to him, now he can be that killer.
It's also, you can trace it back to though round 3 when Groves got hurt in the first doubleheader of that round 3 when they won 2 games, and then Taron Armstrong. So they missed those 2 key starters. They're bookends of their starting 5 for a month plus. And it was longer for Groves. They got Armstrong back. He got hurt again. Then Bradshaw did his ankle. So they lost those key pieces at the wrong time. But you're right. 40's probably sitting there thinking, I could have called this out earlier. But right now you give praise where it's due, because he's done a fantastic job. To navigate through all of this, not just this year, but the years gone by. You think a couple of years ago, they were right there. They were a half away from a championship series. They recruited very well. They always recruit well. But to get to this spot, 3 weeks ago, if you told us, they've got a round coming up towards the end of the season where they play Illawarra Hawks, who are the best team in the league at home, and then they go to Perth a couple of days later, none of us are sitting here giving them a chance.
I did say a team that doesn't fear death, they're tough to play against. So I may not have said explicitly, but I certainly hinted at it that they'd be in trouble at the end of the year. But one of their victims this weekend was the Perth Wildcats, who desperately needed wins to remain in that sort of top 4, top 3 contention. And unfortunately for them, in dramatic fashion against the Taipans, one of the best finishes we've seen to a basketball game. Rest in peace, the free throw line, unfortunately, to that one. Rob Edwards and Bryce Cotton on the other ends. But look, for the Wildcats, they needed 2 wins in this, and unfortunately they couldn't come out with it.
Back to the defensive drawing board for the Perth Wildcats. Now, let's not even sit up here and say, well, Dylan Wheeler didn't play. We talk about who's suited up on the night. Don't bring up Ty Webster. Talk about them dudes who was playing great basketball up until that point. Now, Bryce has been in somewhat of a shooting slump. 37 shots, 34 shots, some astronomical figure of shots Bryce put up in that particular game. Is it Bryce Cotton or nothing? Now, Canu Pender's been great. I like all the contributions off the bench from guys like David Aquera in his minutes and Benny Henschel and Elijah. Everybody's having cameo appearances. But as a collective, they cannot get stops. Now, here's the Cairns Taipans who come down there and they run up the score. Okay, 2 overtimes, say you play an extra quarter, an extra 10 minutes, whatever. They's getting whatever they want. I'm watching defense. I called that game. I'm watching them score and give up a layup. Now, this ain't sustainable. Now, we say, okay, in the playoffs, the things are going to slow down. But I'm telling you, you are who you are. And at some point, I'm sure the Perth can play passages of good defense. But as a collective, can't trust them.
I do put a lot of it down to the Dylan Wheeler absence.
I just said you can't bring him up.
He's got the best plus-minus in the league. So it matters, right? And when they went on their 6-1 road trip journey throughout December and started January, he had found his spot. We called games in Adelaide. He looked great defensively, spotting up, knocking down the 3 ball. So I think that, yes, it does matter, but they still have the pieces to keep that framework of the defense we saw in those games. Shea Ili on Bryce Cotton, though. We talk about Defensive Player of the Year. I just picked out some clips. One thing about Shea Ili is his refusal to get screened. He can be an absolute pest, and these are the kind of games and moments that he lives for. Just making Bryce as tough as he possibly can. Screen coming, yep. He just makes sure. Also, he's got the trust of his big men, which we spoke about last week as well. He sticks to a game plan no matter if he gets beat once or twice, and I'll go back to it. That right there, being able to skinny up, staying on your hip, refusing to get screened we don't see it all from the elite defenders. Not everyone chooses to buy in on the defensive end like this. His continual effort to never give up, to understand, okay, you know what? I've done my job. How do I stop get screened? Every time that offensive foul call from Doolittle, there's not much in it.
No.
But if you fight over a screen, every single time refuse to get screened, you get those calls.
Yep.
Because everybody understands that you're going to continue to fight, refuse to get screened. He did an exceptional job. The team did a very good job of doing that. And that's why Melbourne's had success going over to Perth.
I've been around the NBL for probably 7 or so years now. And the amount of times through various things I've seen, this is the way to stop Bryce Cotton. Have they unlocked the key to stopping Bryce Cotton? And it seems like every year we're back in these seats again and we're saying, he went for 50 again. He went for 60. He's an MVP contender. I'm starting to think that no matter what you do, it's kind of up down. I get what you're saying. There's ways that you can limit him a little bit.
That's what we're talking about.
But it's up to Bryce whether he plays well or not. If he wants to go for 50, the ball's going to go in. If it doesn't, great defense.
He's having 40 this week.
Listen,
for sure.
Bryce is also, now, I want you to stay with me on this one. There are some floppers in the NBL.
Oh, hello.
There are some floppers in the NBL. I ain't saying Bryce is one of them.
Oh, dear God.
But what I'm saying is, that is not a foul. That was not a foul. Referees get caught up. Now, Bryson is kicking his legs out. Tanner is on his way past the scene of the crime, and the referee gets caught up in the hype. This was another one right here. Bryce waves off the defender. Nothing there. He doesn't fall. What Bryce has, he is a opportunistic, listen to me now, he is an opportunistic seasonal faller downer. Let me try that one again. He has a sense of the moment when everybody knows how he lands. He knows he has this up his sleeve. He kicks his feet out. He's in a jackknife position, off balance. He doesn't always fall, but he has a sense of the moment. And when he does decide to fall, have you ever seen him hit the floor and the ref not call a foul?
You showed one of the clips, I think. Yeah,
no,
I'm sure you showed a clip.
They called a foul on that play.
The second one?
No, he didn't fall. If Bryce falls, referees, and you know I ain't lying too, refs. You guys are calling them fouls too. Every time Bryce lands and falls, he getting that call. What I'm saying is, he ain't like a flailer. He ain't one of them kind of dudes. He goes, well, you know what? Yeah, I guess might as well go down.
I'm not
opportunistic.
The leg kicking out thing, I can't buy that though. I can't buy, because that's the way he shoots. There's certain guys who, Mirko Jeric, when he was here, was the same way. Even on a catch and shoot, he shoots the same as doing a step back, where he jumps so high on his shot that his legs flick out. And you watch any down screen curling action that Chris Goulding does, when he's fading away, his legs kick out. And people are like, he's kicking his legs out. It's the way that certain people shoot. I can't get into the kicking the legs outside of things when it's the way that he's...
Sorry,
Did you see... Sam
Pete's just getting a call at the moment. Is that, it's Scott Butler? Yeah. No, we're going to stop this chat immediately. Yeah, we'll move on. That's all right. Sorry, you had one last thing to say, Dan?
Sam Wardenberg, they called a foul on Sam when he was guarding Bryce, and Sam literally turned sideways to get out of the way. And the ref somehow decided, well, you know what? It's Bryce. Bryce gets superstar calls.
When I was asked, we asked the question, I was like, we tried to break it down. How do I make sure that when I'm chasing off a screen, I can run out of the action? It's hard to do, but that's what the elite do. They take advantage of what's put in front of him. That's what he does.
Legally, we have to stop this conversation, but I will leave it with 3 words. Illegal guarding position. Tanner Groves, don't get ankle broken, and you won't be in the position to eventually give that up. But Perth's run home. Now, if Bryce finds his feet, because right now it does seem Bryce or bust for Perth, they're going to need to win a few of these games.
Well, look, they're not going to fall out of the 6.
But you want to roll in with 4.
Of course you do.
They're tough.
That could go either way. Everyone, but the Southeast Melbourne Phoenix, they got that game, and then they got to go for the throwdown. Sydney might have a game prior. Look, it's still jam-packed. Teams playing 2 games in a round. They could easily lose all 3 or win all 3. Either way, they are either 5th or they are 6th. Like you say, 5th, you say you don't want to play Adelaide, I'll play them if I'm at home. I'll definitely play them. I mean, what choice you got? You can't forfeit.
That is true. They'd rather play them than forfeit. You've raised a very good point there. You've got the Bryce Cotton hatred in your eyes right now. It's blinding you. Let's get into it. Ain't no cupcake league. Now, I've been stitched up here because the narrative that people are trying to build around me is that I don't like Tasmania and I come for them as a team. So this week's cupcake, it's only fitting that we just paid a little bit more attention to Scott Roth's press conference. There's one thing I picked up, which I think he might have been falsifying.
My psyche's pretty darn simple. I'm unemotional about it because I've just been in so many different types of games and so many different atmospheres, and you're on top of the mountaintop and you're in the bottom of the mountaintop, and for me it's just going through it. For me, I just don't get too worked up about it one way or another. It's just another basketball game, and you know, when you reach my age and you've been doing this for 40 years, it's just another game.
Just another basketball game. Doesn't get too worked up, you know, older age. It just reminds me of a couple of scenes from a few weeks ago from Scott Roth. Now, I don't know what you're talking about, great man, but right now that is worked up, and that almost feels like more than a basketball game right there.
He did say that was the best win he's been a part of in that arena, and again, Pete Weber.
He also said top of the mountaintop, bottom of the mountaintop. You don't get too worked up. I think I got to call you on that.
Mine is we'll have a bit of fun because she's been great to our coverage, Ariana Prather. But when you're doing the NBL now, sometimes whatever technology you're using to record it, people catch off guards with Zoom. And I don't know if you caught this, but she's obviously just telling us, and then here come the balloons. I don't know. Is it the finger? I'm not sure. And the fact that we just decided to leave this in there.
I'm left behind with AI. Was that real or was that?
No, so I think it's with a Zoom or something, and you can do all these other things. It has bubbles. I don't know how you can stop it happening or whatever. Actually, to be fair, you didn't do the meeting for this week's overtime, but normally when you do decide to jump onto the meetings, you have a nice background. You seem to really nail the Zoom.
I like to customise a little bit. My one was the moon last week, I think it was. Anyway, Damon.
All right, cupcake time now. I'm got to go to my big fella from Senegal, Big Taco Fall.
Oh, God.
Now, look, Tony Smith-Milner, I thought, just, he threw an elbow to the midriff. Can we just look at that one more time? Just one more quick time. Now, Taco, look at, did he get him in the midriff?
I think so.
Okay. I've heard of shot fakes. I'm saying that was a ball fake.
Oh no.
Taco is cupping the minerals.
You don't think I hit the minerals?
I don't think I hit the minerals.
To be fair to him, though, if that was you from getting hit that same, that's your head.
That's CTE.
I'm just saying, And there's not a physio in the NBL that will go anywhere near that region and offer you any support.
You're saying Taco Ball hit us with a pump fake?
I'm just saying it might have been a ball fake.
Well, we'll work out. We'll conduct some further investigation on that one. We'll be back up after the break. Plenty more to come. Well, what can go wrong will go wrong for the JackJumpers this season. It just hasn't played out, and they've fought valiantly over their last 4. But I'll tell you what, Pete, Damon, the turnaround in the second half in that game against the Phoenix. Now, it says humiliated there. I probably don't agree with that. It was embarrassing, but injuries considered, it was bound to happen at some point. I believe it was 1 point at halftime, out to 36 in the second half. Unbelievable. Tough for the Jackies, but that's just the way it goes at the moment.
Decimated by key injuries. Not just injuries, every team goes through it. And we spoke about it a bit last week, the week before. To contend and win a championship year on year, you need to have a bit of luck on your side. You just have to. And that usually revolves around being healthy. The fact they had to lose Majuk Deng, the timing of that when they couldn't afford to lose anybody else with Shawnee Mack already ruled out and Magnay with the toe. It's the timing and the way it's all come together. They fought hard, as you said. It was a 1 point game at halftime. I think you were tweeting like they couldn't possibly.
I was like, if Tasmania won that game, I don't know what I would have done, but there was no way. There's never a sure thing in basketball, but the roster that they put forward for that one is as close as you could come.
Well, I mean, we saw it against that game in Adelaide, in Tasmania against Adelaide. The 1 point win, the thriller they managed to get done then. They just find a way to be able to stay competitive, but it's just been overcome with some really, really tough injuries. And it sucks to see because at some point when they went on that 8-game winning streak, we're all thinking, hang on, most of us would think.
All of us?
If they can just get through unscathed with having Sean McDonald there, Majuk Deng, and they can get Magnay back, they'll be okay. But the injuries just continue to mount, and as you see, it's not pretty.
Yeah, you look at their last 4 games and, 36, 11, 10, 32. I mean, look, there's a certain amount of level, there's a certain amount of talent that you need to win. Right now, they just don't have enough of it. And the talent they do have left remaining are not producing big enough numbers to keep them competitive. Yeah, the Jackies still have enough in them, enough pride, enough discipline, enough cohesion to hang with you for a quarter, maybe even a half. But over the course of a 40-minute game, they're going to run out of tickets. So, yeah, it should have probably blown out to that degree, but that's just what the situation they're in right now. And like I said earlier, I can't see them winning another game. Not with that level. And that's like, I'm clearly not disrespecting the level they have. Some of them young guys are going to be some good long-time NBL players, but going up against the tough teams, not going to be able to get it done.
Well, their season for me fell apart when they were left in the lurch late, at no fault of Jack McVeigh's and at no fault of the club whatsoever. I do think that they could have signed a better import originally or filled that spot with someone else. Now, it is very, very tough when you're dealing with an Aussie local that you lose at the last minute like that. So they were left in the lurch there, no fault of Jack McVeigh's, no fault of their own, but just not being able to find a worthy replacement at that time in the picture, just for me, left them stranded.
I mean, we're all geniuses in hindsight. I go back and look at if Sean McDonald didn't get hurt and Jordan Crawford could be the 6th man that Scott Roth intended this year and they could build off that going forward. They're a top 6 team. I think they showed those glimpses. If they all stay healthy, Majuk Deng playing as good as he did, he would be filling in that power forward spot, whether he starts or whether he's off the bench. Magnay being one of the best big men in the comp. Shawnee Mack, Milton Doyle's been up and down, but had they had that, they would have been in the top 6. They lost all of that at the wrong time, and it's hard. There's too much talent in this league to go in with what they have right now and get wins.
Well, while almost the entire top end of the ladder flopped this weekend, United, who we had said time and time again are in a tailspin, managed to not exactly pull the plane up, but it was terrain, and they just managed to get it a little bit, and they are just clear flying at the moment.
They set themselves up early in the season. So they was on top of the ladder for quite a while, a lot of home games, and then they kind of fell off a little bit. Their best win was in Perth. That win right there showed me, okay, Melbourne United, the bones are still there. Now that win against Brisbane can't really factor that in because again, Brisbane are completely just about out of bodies as well. But Melbourne United have enough. Now, Ian Clark is back making shots. Never doubted it. It's only a matter of time. Jack White, if he can be consistent, you know what you're going to get. And obviously Chris Golding and then the troops, they have enough to contend for a championship. Will they be able to? Time will tell.
This man's the reason. If they go on a deep finals run, they go and get to a championship series and win a championship series, it's going to be on the back of an aggressive Jack White. And we've sat up here, Felix, you and I have sat up here and said, These kind of games, he's done it against Sydney multiple times this season. When he's ultra aggressive on the offensive end, not just shooting the three ball, but putting his head down, ripping rebounds, running out in transition, playing through contact, those are the kind of performances that take Melbourne from a team that, outside of Chris Goulding, if Ian Clark's struggling to shoot, they struggle to score offensively, to a team that can put up a big score, whether it's at home, whether it's away. He is their key. Ian Clark, as you said, he was always going to come out of a shooting slump. He's a champion. He's always going to, everyone goes through it at different points. Jack White is the sole key, I believe, to them unlocking their full potential.
See, I'll challenge you slightly on that because I think Jack White's actually been playing well even when they were losing. He was doing his bit and they still didn't have the pieces around. The best thing that they've had out of this weekend was, as you said, he's a champion. He's always going to do it. But Ian Clark finding his feet, and Delhi also had a couple of good games. If they can get to themselves to the level that we know they can play at, well, all of a sudden you start thinking, okay, same old script, same old Melbourne United. Some teams are in trouble now that they've fallen down the ladder.
It's defensively with the Melbourne United. If defensively they can just do what they normally do historically, they'll be fine. But like you talking about how come Cairns wasn't playing like that early in the season, how come Jack White can't always do that? The Jack White that went to Perth, we haven't seen that Jack White that many times this season.
Yeah, we've seen it against
Not
Sydney
that many.
twice.
I'm just saying, not that many times. All I'm saying is if he can produce that all the time, we talking about you guys were talking MVP early in the season, but Jack comes and goes. Sometimes he's like this, sometimes he's like that. Soon as he makes a decision that I'm going to be the aggressive Jack White that you saw in Perth, he can kick this league's ass.
You say sometimes he?
He's sometimey.
That is
sometimey.
But Jack White is one of those guys, and it's maybe it's his time in the NBA where you're forced to play as a role player. But it's like, I hope he understands.
He's a star.
That he is a superstar. He is a guy that could win an MVP in this league if Bryce Cotton and Kendrick Davis say, we don't want to do this anymore. We want to go and do other things. I think they're a level above right now. But Jack White could be an MVP in this league at some point throughout his career. Hopefully we get to keep him here. But their remaining 2 games, they can lock up second spot if they can win these 2 ones, but they certainly aren't easy contests.
They're going to be fascinating, and I'm so excited for the last couple of rounds because they can either avoid the play-in tournament altogether and just get to a semi-final series and just see who they end up playing, or they could potentially be facing a throwdown first of a play-in tournament. And imagine if you don't win that play-in tournament and you've got Adelaide who, if they win that first one, it's just all to play for. Avoid the play-in tournament altogether if you can.
Well, their last game of the season is the throwdown.
And again, I've done the predictor. We've all done it. I've seen different instances where it all comes down to that, where they could finish second or they could finish 5th, depending on other results. Same with the Phoenix. They could finish 3rd or they could finish 5th. It's all to play for.
Well, we'll back after the break, chatting all things South East Melbourne Phoenix.
Will keep coming. Edwards is going to take responsibility. Here's Clark with a late dagger. He might get a second opportunity. Off the Bowen rebound. Knocks it down. There's a 2-second difference shot to game clock. And they've got the human throw. And Bryce Cotton cannot be stopped.
Tell you what, it might have been the players. It was a bad round to be a free throw, but it was certainly a good one to be a 3-point shot. And also shout out to Joel Peterson for his call of that final play. In both ends of the floor, he did a fantastic job. Just to shout out one of our colleagues there, Chris Goulding. Going to be tough to catch all the way up there. Not many games to go. He's been a flamethrower. Tyler Harvey, 77. But you know what? Players this year are scoring more than ever. So I'm never exactly going to write that off at the moment. But the Illawarra Hawks at the moment have been just a little bit worrying, but it's been against non-contending teams. So I'll put this one to you, Damon Lowery. Are you worried, or is this just, as we've said before, the Hawks taking the foot off the gas a little bit against these cellar-dweller-esque teams?
Yeah, they have definitely a complacency issue against teams that they don't feel threatened by. I don't like it. I don't like that switch. So you get up for Sydney, you get up for Melbourne United, but then you lay down or you don't give your best effort against Cairns and New Zealand, these other teams, right? So that is definitely an issue, but they're not going to have this problem when the playoffs start. Everybody's going to be pumped up for that. But it just shows me that that's what they're capable of, and I don't like having a weakness that other teams can try to exploit. I don't like that. So I'm not going to, I think once the season starts, the proper postseason, I think they'll be fine.
On the topic of that weakness, I think back to the press conference that Sam Froling spoke a few weeks ago after the original loss to Cairns, and he said something that made Justin Tatum, just prick his ears a little bit. He said, we don't like to play against unstructured, chaos ball basketball. Now, do teams look at that? You know, they've lost a lot of games to Adelaide, who play a lot of that sort of run and gun, unstructured basketball. Cairns, well, they have to at the moment with what they've got. Are teams looking at that saying, hey, maybe we just throw the offense out a little bit and we go really downhill on them here?
I don't think none of those teams give a damn about what Sam Frauling thinks. They're just going to go about their business.
I think their coaches might.
That's just the way that Sam describes how they play. He can describe it how you want. Everybody's got a little in-house description of every other team. That's not going to be any extra motivations if that's what you're saying.
No, certainly not motivations. Yeah. I'm saying, is there a blueprint in playing that maybe just a bit more relaxed, because they're a very well-coached team and they're picked apart by teams through Tatum, is just throwing the rule book out a little bit. Is there something in that to maybe even try it during a series?
My concern is more on the defensive end overall. Now, we've seen this, you talk about the individual offensive explosion we've had this year, but it's the whole season it's been offensive onslaughts from teams. Now, defense is going to hold up in the finals. I'm guaranteeing it always does in the NBL. Illawarra Hawks are the 5th best defensively rated team currently as it stands. These are the previous champions. You have to go right back to 2011, where the New Zealand Breakers finished 5th defensively rated team and they won a title. Everyone else, we talk about it to winning the NBL, how important defense is. This could be the year where that doesn't happen, where that trend breaks, but normally when you go back in the stats hold up, especially in the finals. And I do think when the play-in comes, when the semi-final series and a grand final series, the defense, I think the game's going to slow down, and that's where the Hawks, I think, just need to buy back into their defensive schemes. They've got the talent, they've got defenders, they've got Wani Swakala-Bullock, Hickey off the bench. They've got enough pieces there, Mason Peatling in the starting unit. But to have to buck the trend of history, it's been 14 or so years. Right now, I think it's Sydney, who are still the #1 defensively rated team. South East Melbourne have moved up to #2, and Melbourne United are 3rd. So for someone else who's going to have to break history, of recent history, if they want to be a champion, it's going to be fascinating.
Well, the Sydney Kings are one of those teams that's been fascinating all year. They did exactly what they needed to do. This round went 1 for 1. Where do we set their hopes and dreams right now? Kawhi seems to be going through an absolute purple patch. Is he leading them to maybe some false wins? If that's not going to continue, I think personally he's getting the looks and the opportunity that will continue. This isn't a flash in the pan from him.
I'm thinking the Sydney Kings, it's too hard the way they're going about it, winning games. They're winning games in the 4th quarter, sometimes having to make dramatic comebacks. Kawhi Noy's been playing lights out, and he's the 6th man of the year. Let's just stop messing around. But they're asking a lot of Kawhi Noy and Jalen Adams. Jalen Adams is doing so much of the heavy lifting that I can't see how this is sustainable. Yes, he dropped a 43-point game, and they took the L. Last time he had 40 out, I think they took the L as well. Look, they're too small still. There's always been the biggest issue. I still don't know if Brian has worked out the depth of the team, who plays what. Sometimes you're going to get Alex Tui for 27 minutes, then you might get him for 7 minutes. You might get Isaiah Liafa for 30 minutes. It's so much going on that I can't feel like I can trust what's their formula, other than spread out, give it to Jalen. And Jalen is so brilliant at it that he can pull it, he can get it done. But over the course of a series, I don't like it.
Yeah, another 40-piece against Adelaide, just him and Kendrick Davis just going whack in each other's face. And yes, he's been unbelievable. I've still got more confidence in them now than I did a few weeks ago, based on Bull Qual's hitting his straps too. This man here is leading the charge. He's unbelievable. Xavier Cooks is having a phenomenal season as well. Cam Oliver looks good. Bull Qual starting to hit his straps, as we talked about, Kawhi Noy. So if they get the right path in the finals, and when I say that, if they can avoid the Hawks for as long as possible, if they can avoid Adelaide, because I think they are the 2 teams that give them the biggest matchup nightmares, if they get anyone else into a semi-final series, I'm going to back them in. I think they've got enough to get it done. And it doesn't matter. I know you talk about just some of the games where they probably deserve to lose. They haven't been the best team in that game until the 4th quarter. But for most of them, they're finding a way to get out of it. And that game down at the State Basketball Centre, that was their best performance of the year. If they can recreate that in the play-in tournament, in a semi-final series, and they get some good opposition along the way, don't be surprised if this Sydney team's right there at the end.
Would I be right in saying that outside of the Illawarra Hawks, we talk about the Perth Wildcats being Bryce or bust, you could really say that for a majority of teams throughout maybe the top 6, that they've got a single guy, whether it be Kendrick Davis, whether it be Matt Hurt, that if they don't perform. Now, Sydney are interesting because Adams has still had some big games that they've dropped, but I feel like the Illawarra Hawks across the board are just the one where you can look at him and say, you know, Trey Kell could be down, Tyler Harvey could be down, Sam Froner could have an off night, and it really doesn't impact winning and losing.
Correct.
That's why,
anywhere it does the rest of the
But that's why we're all sitting here saying they're the team to beat, right? Because they're equal opportunity offense. They've got the best bench in the league, the contributors that come in, Lee, Hickey, Olbrich, Days before the hamstring. They've got so many different pieces that can step up, and what they've been the best at is adapting to different roles. And they've been the healthiest team largely in part the entire season as well. But when roles have to change, they can do it a lot seamlessly, I guess, than any other team.
And they have this rock-solid formula that doesn't change from week to week. We're an inside-outside team. That's just what it is. They all know it. It doesn't mean that Sam Froner is going to score 25 a game. It just means we're going to go into you, and then you got to make the decision on the kickouts or whatever. He'll draw a double team. You put a small ball lineup against the Hawks, you're going to get punished on the inside. You never hear us when we're commentating about the Hawks going, how come they didn't punish the mismatch? They always do that kind of stuff. So they got a formula for success in winning games. I'm going to back that in.
Whoever they're playing, if they make it to the final, it is going to be whoever they're playing against everyone. They've got a whole lot of support throughout this league. I'm going to take a strepsil and try to get through the rest of this.
2 of them.
Maybe 3. We'll see you after the break. From Blackmores.
You know, we were back at 500 before New Year's. And, you know, through the month of December, we got the best record in the NBL. We've got the best record in the NBL in the month of January. No one seems to recognise that. They seem to talk about all the other teams, you know. You get more talk about Adelaide and what they're capable of than a team that's been the best team in the NBL for 2 months. So, yeah, tough start with the worst team. Now we've gone to the best with the number 3 ranked offensive team in the NBL, number 3 ranked defence.
Interesting one. Simon Mitchell, I'm not sure what you've been watching because we've been saying that South East Melbourne were contenders almost week in, week out. And Adelaide, well, it's been a circus. So, of course, we're going to be talking about them. But also, now I love Simon Mitchell. I think he's very, very good at his job and he does a fantastic job. But if you're going to call a press conference and have your media manager ask you the question, you don't want to lose the next game to another team that has potentially been in the conversation. So you call your shot, but you've got to be prepared. Maybe come out and get the win after that because the Phoenix, I'll say it now down the barrel, they are well and truly contenders, something that we have claimed throughout the entire season ever since they made the coaching change and started to win games, which always helps, but I just think they missed on that one.
I mean, we talk about it. The more talk we get in the NBL, we love it from the players, we love it from everybody, but you say if you're going to talk, you got a game the next day. Maybe wait until after a win or that to be able to do it leading up to it. But you're right, they have looked very, very good. We have spoke about it, whether we talk about other teams at times for whatever reason. But what I love so much about this South East Melbourne team is you talk about understanding when it's time to go. The loss to the Sydney Kings stood out where Matt Hurd didn't touch the ball. And that's a big issue. And I'm sure they would have addressed that when they would have. Matt Hurd is unguardable. Matt Hurd has been unbelievable all season long.
Almost as unguardable as Majok Deng.
I thought you were going to say. So, Matt against Tasmania, they understood, yep, you know what? They don't have a matchup for him. Not many teams do have a matchup for him, and they fed the big man the rock. Super efficient, 29 points, 11 of 17. He's been shooting it from the field overall unbelievably well this season and can do it in a variety of different ways. So, the fact that they lost that game against Sydney could be a blessing in disguise when Josh King goes back and looks at it and shows the team. Do you know who this is in the locker room? This guy's unguardable. This is an all-NBL caliber first-team guy we have right here. And he takes 3 shots in the first half. That cannot happen again.
Unacceptable.
And it didn't happen against Tassie. They fed the beast and he got rolling.
Everybody throughout the course of the season is going to have that one game when you go, what the hell was that? Like, who are you guys? And that was the game against the Sydney Kings. But prior to that, we've been saying since Josh taken over, Josh King, that even without Derek Walton Jr., we said they can still cover. Okay, they don't have a Derek Walton Jr., but if you give me Angus Glover, Benny Ayer, Owen Foxwell, it's enough, it's enough of them to cover the loss. And they've been doing that, and they've been playing some good D. And Joe Wieskamp is all of a sudden just had a resurgence. And as long as they don't forget about Jordy Hunter, you ain't winning a championship with your 7-footer, 6'11 and a half, whatever Jordy is, taking 2 shots a game, getting a couple of rebounds. Every team's got to work out when they are the worst version of themselves. And when the Phoenix are the worst version of themselves, they forget about Jordy and they forget about Matt Hurt. I don't think that's going to happen too often.
Well, Simon Mitchell's done a fantastic job this year. Tommy Greer, of course, he departed on his own accord at some point during the year. He's done a fantastic job. But I've got to say, if they want more media attention, all that sort of stuff, start a fight in the locker room. Because that's what the Adelaide 36 has done. Maybe fire a coach that you signed for 3 years just randomly with no excuse. Maybe that'll do it. Unfortunately for the Phoenix, they had a respectable coach departure. There was no drama there, but unfortunately sometimes that's what it takes. So maybe that's in the blueprint there. But the run home for the Phoenix, let's have a look at that, Pete, and what do you see?
Well, I mean, we talked about the throwdown for Melbourne right at the end, and there's some tough games. That's going to be their summer shootout game heading over to Perth, the last summer shootout game. So that's going to have the target scores there. If they want to win it, they'll know what score they have to go after. That Adelaide one could be crucial as well. The Adelaide one could be crucial because it could be the difference in them playing Adelaide in a couple of weeks' time in the playing tournament or not. So every game's tough from here on out, but I do love what we've seen from them overall. Josh King's been fantastic. For them to understand, for them to be the second best defensively rated team, incorporating the whole season from where they started. It excites me for next year as well, when Josh King has an imprint of the team that he wants to build together as well. I know they've had talks they would like this to keep Matt Hurt. Yesterday's price is not tomorrow's price. Hey. Matt Hurt's price is well and truly gone up. I know he loves staying here. I'd love to see him in the league for a long time. That man is 10 days away from being eligible for the Next Generation Award.
That is remarkable.
That's how young he is, though.
Yeah.
So he's got a massive career ahead of him. I'd love it to be here, but he's been exceptional.
Yesterday's price is not today's price. That gives us time to run the most expensive stinger in TV. Hools is hearing. Let's go, Hools. What have you got for us? I know you're always in the trenches. What do you got for us this week?
Are you setting me up?
What are you talking about? Who's this hearing, man?
Oh, this is what you were talking about?
What are your segment?
What have you got?
Oh, well, I just thought...
What have you got?
Well, since you spent half of your time at the State Basketball Centre talking to one of the head coaches, maybe we could have had a Hall's hearing this week. Look at that. Oh, jeez.
Still going.
Man, that's 8 minutes. So you're telling me, Peter Hooley, in 10 minutes, Josh King told you nothing. Under the table, over the table, on top of the table, something that we could have used.
Why are you bothering that man?
Well, firstly, I get along with everybody. I'm just a very nice human being. He actually did say one thing.
Okay.
He said that your hairline, now it's something that you talk about mine. He was like, that dude Felix's hairline might be worse than yours. I was like, thank you, coach. I've been trying to say it the whole time. I'm glad that he brought it on.
The air conditioning in the studio is broken and there's a fan sitting over there, which if I was to place next to your head right now, it would unveil a whole lot of scalp that you do not want anyone seeing.
If that camera was on the other side, I'm in big trouble because my sunroof would have opened.
Oh, that is good. Well, as soon as we start talking to my hairline, it's time to move to the trend is your friend. Because if I ever want to go to Turkey and get a hair transplant, it's going to be Sportsbet and their payment that's going to get me there. Now, we've spoken about it before. Always got to fear a team that doesn't fear death. And the Cairns Taipans right now, you know the algorithms that go into making prices for the head-to-heads and the total points? You know what they can't really add in there? The weird phenomenon that happens when you can't make the playoffs anymore and you suddenly decide it's now time to play basketball. That doesn't come in. What's the computer saying? The computer, the geniuses, the AI that works upstairs to make these markets, well, it's very tough for them to put that into the algorithm. So you see here, 102, 111, 75. What's going on there? Delete that. Delete round 17. Shouldn't be in there. 100 and 125. The Taipans, now you are great basketball minds. What do you put it down to that they're going on these remarkable scoring runs?
I mean, one is that carefree and playing a bit loose. You go back to the Brisbane game, they started to push the pace even more than they originally had. But it's Rob Edwards for me. He has been really composed. They're taking the better shot. They're taking great shots now rather than just good shots. And it's helping, and they're having fun. And I'm enjoying this. And again, I feel for Cairns fans, as we mentioned before, where if this was if they didn't have the injuries at the time, but they've got so much talent.
They're including Tanner Groves. Early on in the season, before he got hurt, when he came back, he'd do all the dirty work, don't get rewarded. Now he's picking and popping, he's getting the ball, he's shooting threes. He's shooting over 40% from three. But I really want to shout out Pedro Bradshaw. He's the unsung hero, I feel, in that three-headed monster of imports. He's the one getting all the loose rebounds, playing the defense, hitting the timely shots. Probably not going to ever go for a 30-piece, but he just came off a big double-double against Perth and had a strong game the one before that. So they all understand their roles and they're including everybody.
I'll give you something then. I've got to feel. I think we'll see Tanner Groves in the NBL again next year.
Are you hijacking my trend as your friend segment?
I'm just
to bring
telling
your
you.
Hall's hearing after we ran the stinger?
I'm just telling you, I think we'll see him in the NBL.
The nerve on you. Back to my segment. The bet suggestion for this one, total points over in the Cairns, even to win. We see them stringing a couple of wins together. The computers, the nerds upstairs, they can't put that sort of stuff in. So that's where we're going to roll with this one. Plenty more to come. Me and Pete just to fix up our hairlines as well.
What are you really gambling with? For free and confidential support, call the number on the screen or visit the website.
Well, round 19, what's it going to bring us? I don't even know why we bother trying to predict it, because anything's going to happen. Cairns Taipans, they're going to get another win. Let's break it all down. Peter Hooley, what are you seeing?
Well, my first thought is to have a look at the schedule. I mean, right, the Sunday doublehead is huge. There's things to play out. The summer shootout game, Perth versus Southeast Melbourne. With how many games we play, and especially in January, do we need rounds anymore?
No. Well, that's why it's hard. You know how many times I've messed up
let's
what
just have
round it
game
is?
number, whatever it is. We need rounds. We play all over the time.
We split rounds. Been going on for too long. I think AFL started that split round stuff.
Yeah. Damon, what are you saying?
I like the Perth SEM. That Friday night is going to be lively. I'm going to try to stay awake for that one. But yeah, SEM got to go on the road. It's going to be big. All those games.
Melbourne Tassie will be big too. I know Tassie are undermanned, but they love playing at John Cain Arena.
They certainly do. I don't know what it is about that arena, but they've come in and smacked Melbourne plenty of times in that one. But it's time to jump into my little segment, the pressure cooker.
Oh.
Now, unfortunately, I'm dealing with quite the ailment, as you've been able to hear throughout the show, so I'm going to divert.
Matt Walsh.
Oh, jeez. Go ahead,
Matt Walsh. Under pressure. Is that what you got down on yours there?
That's what I've got there.
Hey, Matt. Hey, man.
Eat barreling.
Matt, I've been waiting all season. Tried to give it a go. Tried to let things kind of settle themselves out. But it didn't happen, did it? That big beast staring at you, that's karma. Now look, your team is in a shambles. You tried to rewrite stuff that was already going on. There was nothing wrong with it. It was not broken. You broke it. Perry Cotton, fantastic job. Perry's been coaching his absolute Finnish ass off. But Matt Walsh, owners getting too handsy, getting too involved. Just pay the bills, man. Just pay the checks. Cut the checks. Let the coaches pick the players. Don't be going off and getting these all great ideas and just thinking you can come over here and reinvent the wheel. Now look what's happened. Team, you can't win games. Like, it's not sustainable. And please don't think this is a shot at the individual, personal shot at Taco Fall.
No.
It is not.
I think we know who it's a shot at. I think
It
that's
is
been pretty clear.
Am I clear? It's Matt Walsh. It's the owner, man. Like 7-3. 7-3 with an MVP candidate, and you just flipped it on his head, and now can barely win a game. So there you go. Under pressure for next season. Give Parker Jackson Cartwright the bag. Get Perry Cotton in the call, Anthony Lamb, and see how his Achilles is doing. And yeah, leave it up to the coaching staff.
Dude, can you be like my alarm? Like, just the way when you get fully into it, like, I want to run through all for you, man.
Anyway, Pete, you got any plans for the weekend?
I just love when Damon gets fired up.
Yeah.
I'd still be asleep from running for 24 hours.
I'll tell you what. Well, we got some big games coming up. Matt Walsh and the New Zealand Breakers, of course, they got a lot to fix, and I think they will. It's a very proud club. Damon Lowery, Peter Hooley, thank you for joining. Until next week, enjoy round 19.